year. I personally dealt with over 350 bodies at the first night. So to deal with it on a normal basis, you would go bananas, you would go crazy, you wouldn't be living a normal life. But as much as you're trained, you're not trained to a purpose like this to deal with so many casualties in 24 hours.
Hello, everyone. This is Andrew and Daphne. Our guest today is Simcha Greiniman. Simcha, for people that don't know who you are, could you just say a bit about where you're from and what you do?
Okay, my name is Simcha Greiniman. I'm a volunteer in Zaka International. I am a volunteer for 33 years already in this organization. Today, in the past year, I basically represent Zaka around the world. I spoke in the UN, Parliament of England, France, and Germany, Congress in the States twice. I represent Zaka. Zaka stands for Identifying Unnatural Death. That's in Hebrew, Zihui Kolbanot Ason, unnatural death. And we deal with different tragedies internationally, and after tragedies like earthquakes, floods, different situations like after the tsunami in Haiti, terror attacks in Bombay, and different places all around the world. Our main goal in our life is to care for humanity. On a daily basis, we're based in Israel. We deal with unnatural death here in the country, over 1,500 different casualties. In the Jewish law, it's very, very important to collect every remain and every drop of blood, tissue sample, or bone to bring it to burial. By understanding the meaning of respecting whoever died, by respecting whoever survived and alive. By us, we say to respect whoever is alive and to even respect more whatever is remained. That means whoever died, the remains, we have to respect it as it's a human that's alive. By understanding that we live through the Bible, and if God forbid a Bible burns in a synagogue or a different place, we collect whatever remains, the ashes, and we bury it the proper way. The same way we look at humanity. We collect every drop of blood, we collect every bone, every tissue sample to be able really to respect whoever died. And that brings us to October 7th. October 7th, over 18 and a half weeks, I was a commander on the scenes, basically going through house by house, knowing every house what happened, collecting all the bodies of the civilian Israeli citizens and soldiers and police officers, but also collecting by respecting the bodies of the terrorists that we saw what they caused and did, but respecting their bodies by making sure that we collect every drop of blood and every body of theirs to be able to really bring them back to their families at the end of the day, after knowing that a lot of people were taken hostage. So hoping that we'll be able to exchange between the bodies of these terrorists to the bodies that were taken hostage. That's the main important things, to bring those bodies back to burial, so that the families that are sitting and mourning and waiting for their beloved families should be able to be buried the proper way.
And for people that listen to this, they want to find out more about you, more about Zaka, maybe they want to volunteer. Where can they find out more about you?
So you just go in to online, you write Zaka, 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 and you'll find right away our posted all the time. We have all the information, all the news, all the newsletters, all the time. You can have it in Hebrew, in English, in French, in different languages. You can see it. You can donate. You can be a part of a volunteer. You can learn more how important it is. Every drop of blood. When you look at humanity and you understand the purpose of it, and you really take it personal, you can see a lot of things why, according to the Jewish law, it's important. According to the Jewish law, if a woman, her husband passed away, so for sure she can get remarried. But if you do not have the body, or you're not able to identify the body, it's a very hard situation. So the best situation, the best scenario is to be able to identify the body through seeing the face and saying, okay, I recognize this person, this is so and so. If not, we're able to check with DNA and different ways of checking the teeth, the jaw, fingerprints, if there are fingerprints. We had situations on October 7th that we had bodies that were burned to ash. And that's already a problem that you cannot identify. Even DNA you can't get out of the ash. The only place after the terror attack on the Twin Towers and 9/11. So the in America they were able to build a special machine that builds back DNA from ash. So there's a lot of bodies that were burned, but we had to send samples to the States to be able to build up DNA to make sure that we're dealing with this person, that we know for sure the casualties were this person, that person, because a lot of the houses were burned with people alive in them. And the remains were only ash. There were cars, there were houses in different places, different kibbutzim, that we had to collect that situation. You have that situations also with bodies around the world in situations like floods. We had in the tsunami. It took almost 3 months to identify a lot of the bodies because a lot of them were overswelled. And it took time because you can't see the faces. The faces are after a certain amount of time, the body changes. So it's a whole forensics situation that you have to learn and train and know how to deal with these situations to really bring all the evidence and to be able to, if you don't have a body, you can't refill up the will. If a person is a wealthy person and he has a will to do something with the money, if you don't have a body, you can't use that also. So you have a lot of reasons why you have to have all that information, and that's very important. Not only that, the families are waiting and waiting to know what happened, who's captured, who's alive, who's dead. And we're talking about internationally going through earthquakes. People are all hysterical. The family member is gone. We were in Turkey for almost 3 weeks collecting 18 bodies of Muslims over there. But we had a few family members in a certain place. The buildings were falling apart and it was too dangerous. So we had to bring special heavy machines to take apart everything. So it took almost 2-3 weeks to move everything around to be able to try to find the bodies. But after 2-3 weeks standing outside, not in a normal atmosphere, the body starts decomposing. And so then what? Who is it? What is it? You have to collect all the information from the scenes and all that to be able to try to identify. So it's very, very important, all these things, to be able really to face the situations and to be strong enough mentally and physically to understand that you're facing in situations that, like a firefighter runs into a fire, we run into scenes that we're going to be seeing situations that are unbelievable to deal with. But that's the point of our organization: caring for humanity, putting ourselves in risk, for sure, mentally, to be able to save lives, and for sure to bring dignity to families and these people that are not with us anymore.
And for people listening or watching, I'll put the details in the description box so you can go and check that out. A lot of what you're saying is very intense, and you're saying is it predominantly volunteers? It's all volunteers that work for Zaka, and with that, go on.
Yeah. In Israel, we're over 4,000 volunteers: men, women, Jews, Christians, Muslims, all together united. We have 15 people that work on payroll on the whole organization. So it's over 4,000 volunteers in Israel. And internationally, we're growing from day by day. We're growing more and more volunteers, and we're opening after different tragedies around the world. Every place that we come, we also train them and teach them how to open volunteers and their communities to be able to stand if they have any disasters anywhere around the world with their communities.
So with that, what kind of training is there for, if someone comes to you and says, I would like to volunteer, what does that training process look like for them?
Okay, so it depends on what's his background. Okay, so on a normal situation, I would for sure would like to have someone that's a first responder. He's a medic. Oh, he's MT. Oh, he's a firefighter. Oh, he was something in the military. So he has a certain background for something that we could really use him and have him part of the search and rescue. But then we can have also people that are not trained in different fields, because Zaka on a daily basis not only deals with saving lives, but as I said, search and rescue. We have a whole team of 80 plus, it's called, people that are out have Alzheimer's, that they left the house and now we're looking for them. So we have drones, we have divers, we have 4x4 wheelers, we have dogs, canine dogs, we have horses. We're going on mountains to find deserts and different places. So there's so many aspects that we can have people to be volunteers. Not only that, we're talking about an earthquake. We need plumbers, electricians, people that deal with gas, people that understand that the architects, to read a plan, to know how the building is secured. Because when we want to come into a building to start taking out the bodies, you have to have an architect, you have to have an electrician, people that stop, that close the gas, one that closes the electricity. Everything is involved. So when we build communities, we have to have everything to be able to build a whole pyramid of planning, having people that are part of the volunteering. So every community, for sure, after we start working with the communities, we have the sheriff association today involved in the states, and we have different countries. Every place we have their special units that have, they're the ones to bring in the people, and we're very happy to build more and more communities. That's for sure. Filling up your name and information, what your skills are, and that's on the form that you can always fill up for volunteering, and then we could connect whoever wants to be a volunteer. But there's a lot of people that cannot be a volunteer. People are afraid of blood. People are afraid that they can't deal with different situations, so they always can be part by donating. You can always donate a kit. You can always donate time to psychiatrists and stuff like that. We need a lot of psychiatrists now in Israel and different places around the world helping after disasters like this. And we have to have people to support, to pay for psychiatrists and stuff like that. So there's always ways that you can always be part of the family of Zaka and be a part of the group of caring for humanity. So there's always an opening.
So we were with you in Israel, and we're with you at what's called the car graveyard, which you might explain in a minute to people what that is. It was very intense. I know for everybody who went, you almost couldn't linger too long in one place, or you get drawn into the tragedy and the pain and the agony of just one car. So I've got two questions. What is the car graveyard, and why would you meet us there? And the second thing is, how do you cope with that? Now, I realise you have many years behind you, probably of learning coping skills, etc. But generally in Zaka, how do people cope? So those are my two questions.
The graveyard basically is where we brought all the 2,050 cars to be able to go car by car and check, to collect every remain, every drop of blood, every bone and tissue sample that was in the cars, to be able to bury it, and to bring from there all the forensics to be able to identify, because a lot of people that were in those cars weren't the owner of the car, or people that were trying to run away, sometimes even terrorists in some of the cars. So we had to have all the information coming out of these places to be able really to try to identify and to bring dignity to the families. So that's all those cars. And instead of having people walking through the personal places in the kibbutzim, it's very, very tense for the families that are still waiting for hostages to come back. So they decided to use these cars as a memorial, that people feel more comfortable to relate to that instead of really going through the kibbutzim, personal places and personal houses. So they have this place so people can hear the stories of the tragedy, and some places that you can hear these different stories that people survived and how they were able to survive under fire, under these terror attacks. So Second question is,
It was,
we are believers in our life. And we live through the praises of God. And David wrote in his poems that we say it on Friday before the Sabbath day. We say at Lahagid baboker chasdecha ve'emunatcha balelot. To praise God in the morning is by believing Him at night. Okay, if you believe that God is the one to create, that's the one to provide, and the one that really takes care of you every moment of your life, that means when you're falling asleep and you're closing your eyes and you see these terrible, terrible, horrific things that you cannot believe that your brain is seeing, you saw it, your eyes dealt with it, your hands, I personally dealt with over 350 bodies at the first night. So to deal with it on a normal basis, you would go bananas, you would go crazy, you wouldn't be living a normal life. But as much as you're trained, you're not trained to a purpose like this to deal with so many casualties in 24 hours. But you have to be a believer, a strong believer, to believe that what you're doing is God's calling, and this is your calling to do it now and in this place, in this situation. So anywhere around the world, when I face a situation like after a terror attack or even after a disaster, any disaster, I believe that God is the one to provide, and God is the one that made it happen. And now I'm here because God put me in this place. This is my purpose, to continue doing this and to try to help and save humanity, to save as many possible, and to try to bring dignity to the families.
On October 7th, at what point were you, I guess, called up? I don't know.
Well,
Yeah,
2
when did
o'clock
you
in the
hear?
afternoon, 2:20 in the afternoon, I was already called in to really deal with the situation. By the IDF already was in the Nova area, seeing the situation and understanding that they're not able to deal with so many casualties. That's the reason Zaka is always there. Zaka is always working under the police authorities on a daily basis. But when you're talking about over 200 casualties, automatically Zaka takes over control and is part of the main dealing with civilians and dealing with casualties, mass casualties, and dealing with situations that the army itself, the IDF, dealt with one body. Took them 7 minutes. It took us as volunteers that deal with this daily, took us maybe a minute and a half to two. Okay, so on the time that we already finished bagging 3 bodies, they finished 1. So that's professionals. It's a totally different understanding.
So when you got the call, where was the first place you went to? Was it Nova Music Festival?
No, I came to the highways, to Highway 34. Over there, I started entering to Sderot. It was still before I came to 232. The highway was loaded with bodies. Cars are still on flame. Unbelievable scenes that you cannot imagine. Your brain is not understanding. Are you dealing with attack of a missile that flew from Gaza into Israel? Oh, I didn't really understand until I got the call, understanding that the fields around me are full still with terrorists. And driving a truck of Zaka, I'm in a very, 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 very big risk because I could be a target any second. So it's very important for me to get to a safe place and be able to really deal with the situation on the best way, on the best level. So it wasn't easy at all, but a few hours later, my truck was loaded from the floor to the ceiling, over 72 bodies. It's a scene that you cannot imagine the situation, but understanding that every moment that the bodies are on the highway, they can be hijacked into Gaza, back into Gaza, taken as hostages. And the main important thing was to get as we said, to get to be able to identify as fast as possible, because everyone was in trauma and didn't really know what the situations are, what are we dealing with, how many casualties, how many people are taken hostage. So it was very important to deal with it as fast as possible.
And did you have security with you in your car, or is your security just at the IDF in the area?
Well, at the beginning, we did not have anything. I came with my vest. I didn't even bring my personal gun because I didn't know that I'm really going into a battlefield. So it
Mm.
was unbelievable. But after that, we had 4 jeeps of IDF surrounding the truck, and all the time basically giving us security. Next morning, Sunday, around 10 o'clock, we were standing in one of the highways on 232, and we had soldiers surrounding the truck, and all of a sudden, out of one of the fields, 2 terrorists jumped out and shot the commander that was with us 7 bullets. He died on the spot then. So it wasn't easy at all to continue dealing with a person that the whole night was with us, and then a few hours later, he was another one body in our truck.
Was the person that shot him, was he killed, the terrorist?
Yeah, there's 2 terrorists who also shot
So
the soldiers.
I guess this, I was thinking about this question already, but then you bring up this scenario. So in this scenario, did you then have to recover his body, the IDF soldier commander's body, and the bodies of the terrorists?
Exactly.
So how do you process that?
Well, we tried saving his life. As a medic, the first thing is you start CPR and trying to save him. But after that, there was nothing to do. After having 7 bullets, it wasn't easy at all. And then they go over to the field and collect those 2 bodies of the terrorists. Having special security and special forces coming and taking off all the vests and all the ammunition that they had on them. They had grenades, they had different ammunition that they could have killed us in a second. And collecting those bodies also in the same truck.
Is this something that people struggle with? Is that they don't just have to recover the bodies of their people, but also the bodies of terrorists that have just killed their people? Is this something that people really struggle with internally?
Psychologically, it's very, very hard. It's very, very hard. But the understanding that you cannot leave any bodies on the highways because people have to drive by. They cannot see all these bodies, not terrorists and not civilians. So it doesn't really make difference. You have to make sure that you collect all the bodies. That's the main line. First of all, making sure that nothing is out in the fields, and you're collecting everyone. So people young soldiers, or the civilians that are driving by don't see bodies laying all over. It's not respectful for anyone.
When you're talking about identifying bodies, both of terrorists, etc., and Israelis, my simplistic thought is what holds you steady in that, what you were talking about at the beginning, that your basic belief about humanity, well, you explain it because I might explain it wrong, but if you go back to that core belief, is that what holds you steady?
For sure. You have to believe that God is the one to create. And God created the world. He gave Adam a name, Adam. What does it stand for? If you look at the letters in Hebrew, Adam stands for 3 letters. Aleph, Daled, Mem. Aleph is the first letter in the Hebrew. Aleph always stands for God. Elokah is Aleph. Daled, Mem. Daled, Mem stands for blood, Dam. If you're not connected to your Creator, you're not connecting to God. You're left with only blood, and we know that blood represents evil. And if you're not connected to your Creator, you're standing in the wrong place. And you have to understand that you have to all the time believe that you have to live in the shadow of God, and you're representing God all the time, every moment. So live life and respect living is the most important part.
Yeah, we agree. So where are you at? Where are things at today in the post-October the 7th? Are you still working on identification? Are you still in places of uncertainty with some people? Are they hostage? Were they killed? Where is it at in this moment in time?
Sorry. Okay, so basically now that we know that we have hostages still in Gaza, as long as we don't have all of them home, we don't know really where we're standing. We're standing in a situation that we're getting bodies every so often, and we have to go through that situation, identifying them and knowing who they are and for sure that we're getting the right people. And we can continue on living a normal life because we're all the time on the stage of waiting what will happen tomorrow. There are still terror attacks in Israel all the time. Even yesterday we had a terror attack. This morning we had a terror attack. So we're all the time on the edge of what could happen any second in Israel. And it's important that we know that we have to be strong and united against the evil. And that's the only thing that could help us survive.
Yeah.
You mentioned in one day you recovered 350 bodies, the first day, I think.
The first night.
The first night. So then after you finished, you go home and...
There is no going home. For 2.5 weeks, we were basically, for the first week itself, I was on the scenes the whole time, going back and forth to the morgue, bringing more bodies and more bodies and more bodies, and getting there all the time to be able really to get the identification as fast as possible. That was our main goal the whole time. Not to waste time, not to go home, not to have time to do anything else. You're very, very sharp and understanding that as fast as you do it, the answers will be faster and we'll know better where we're standing. So it's important to do it fast and the proper way and to do it the best.
How are you, like when you go to put your head on a pillow to get some rest, are you even able to?
You fall apart. It's not something that you can fall asleep on daily. That's the reason I said you have to praise God in the morning, you have to believe in it at night. When you lay down, you try to fall asleep, you have to be a strong believer.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable.
I think I suspect that most people listening to this haven't had a clue about the work that you do till they hear about it, and you're behind the scenes. You're not getting any kind of glory for it. Not that there is any glory in this situation, but it is.
Yeah.
It underpins just about everything what you're doing.
So there's a very special thing in the Judaism. It's called Chesed Shel Emet. Chesed means kindness, kindness of truth. Why is it called kindness of truth? Because when you do something kind to someone, someone else will do kind to you, right? It's always when you give someone a hug, there's someone opposite you getting the hug, right? There's always two sides. So when you're doing something good for someone, you're always getting back. Someone will do good to you also. When you're dealing with bodies, you're dealing with only God. He's the only one that could do bad good, do to you whatever you're doing for these people that did not make it. And it's called Chesed Shel Emet. If you look at the letters, Emet stands also in 3 letters. Aleph, Mem, Taf. Aleph, as we said before, Aleph is Elokah, God. Mem, Taf is death. Mit. Okay? If you truly Emet, truly do Chesed Shel Emet, if you really do the kindness through truth, you're dealing with God's creation. That's the most important way of dealing with it and doing that for sure, dignity and doing it without having any personal causes and respect and doing it really from 100% from your heart. I'm a volunteer, 33 years. On a daily basis, I'm a carpenter. I have my own business, thank God, for 28 years. And I leave everything aside to be able to really go and save lives and really give the dignity to these people that did not survive.
Sort of broadening this out a little bit, because maybe people, I'm glad that we could have you on, because like Daphne said, a lot of people may not have heard about Zaka and what they do, and you were some of the first ones in on October 7th. And a lot of people also will not know so much about your help with countries around the world that are going through horrendous situations, including countries that don't like Israel. They're not your biggest fans. And so could you maybe just talk a bit about that, the international scope of what you do and helping those countries?
So we Zaka represents a special, unique organization that deals with tragedies anywhere around the world after any situations of death. Not only death, but also for search and rescue in situations of tragedies like earthquakes, mud floods, floods around different places around the world, tsunamis, and different hard situations of terror attacks also. So we're there for humanity. We are notified by the UN as a special search and rescue team, and we get called in. We're asked to come and provide whatever we could provide, and this is what we do anywhere around the world. Doesn't make difference. We don't care if we're dealing with Jews, Christians, Muslims. The main goal is humanity, and that's the most important part of the unique way, as I said before, living in the shadow of God, representing God all the time in our life to make sure that we're doing God's work, God's mission.
I might have got this wrong. I might have mixed up two different stories, but I'll give it a go. Wasn't there an incident with Turkey where they refused to let? Have I got it right? Right. Can you talk about that situation before I mess it up?
Well, with Turkey, we have for many years. We came there after earthquakes, and we helped over there. Today, Turkey is not in the best relationship with Israel, but even so, if God forbid there's any incidents now in Turkey, we're not going to assist twice. We'll right away leave our houses, families, and come to help save lives. Because we have to understand one thing: if you represent something and you represent it the right way, this is the only way that you can really face reality and face the situation to show that you are better and you care for humanity. If someone doesn't care for your civilians or your family, it's his problem. But we have to show careness and to show our kindness to make sure that we're there for humanity.
Listening to you, we came on to hear about Zaka, which we have heard, and people coming on think, let's find out about this organisation. I think you have shown us far more than Zaka. You have given us some deep truths to live our lives by, some challenging truths. I, for one, would like to listen to this all over again. I've been focused on Zaka. I would like to listen to it all over again to focus on what you are speaking to my heart through what you're saying. And my hope and prayer is that people listening to this will also see those true dynamics of what you share, which is really, really precious. And I thank you because I know you're not just speaking words, but you're speaking what you live. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
I really appreciate it. As you said, for now I am traveling the world every 2 weeks. I'm all around the world, going to be able to really explain it, how important it is to be able to be united internationally, and then train people and to understand how important it is really to have the community in their centers wherever they live. Doesn't make difference what the culture is. To be united, because today it could be a flood, tomorrow it could be an earthquake, different day it could be a different disaster. We never know what stands in our way. But if we're united, strong as a community, as a humanity, we'll be able to live through any tragedy that faces us in any situation, even if it's something bad that faces us. We'll be able to live through it, maybe not living through it, but living beside it, I would say. Living with the tragedy, but understanding that we're strong as a community, as a humanity, caring for each other, living together through this, and hopefully we'll see better days.
Yeah, Simcha, thank you for taking the time. We enjoyed getting to meet you in Israel. It's been really good to get to know you more here, and thank you for all you do. It is extremely challenging. Even we've just heard some of the stories here. We heard more when we were with you in Israel, And it's also really good for people to hear about Zaka and what you did October 7th related. But, you know, people around the world often hear about the negative things Israel does, like whether it's true or not. They just, you know, they think Israel is always bad. And this is a great example of one of those things that Israel does, which is actually, it's a blessing to the nations. And so it's really good for people to hear this and what Israel does to try and help the nations around them, even those that are not the biggest fans of Israel, I guess, if we could put it that way.
Thank you.
So thank you so much.
I appreciate it very much. And I also send you my card that you can post it up with the QR. It will be easier to go through the QR to see more information about Zaka, learn about Zaka. As I said, you can always become a part of the family. We really appreciate it for hearing what we have to say and being a support, not only being a support by caring, but mentally, physically, and part of really giving from yourself as a volunteer, or if not, as a supporter. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Simcha.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to this episode. Remember, if it inspired you, share it with others so we can see more people engaged in this community.